But we have a big piece of breaking news now coming in. Does this mark the first major sign of de-escalation in this 8-day conflict that we witnessed so far? Because Iran has now said, and this is what we're getting to hear, that there'll be no more attacks on its neighbors. So has it now decided to soften its tone? Iran's president, Mr. Pezeshkian, has hinted at de-escalation in the conflict that we're currently witnessing in West Asia. And according to some reports as well, he's also apologized to some of the countries that have been at the receiving end of Iranian attacks. Let me go across to Rishabh for more on this now. Rishabh, this is a big statement coming from Iran, essentially telling some of the countries affected in the Middle East. Of course, this is not a message meant for Israel or the United States, but many of the Gulf states that have now been at the receiving end of Iranian attacks, that it might end up restraining itself. Will these attacks stop? What's the message going from Iran, Rishabh? Because this is indeed very significant.
Well, there are three things here, Siddharth, that we need to understand. A, while Iran was attacking the US bases in the neighborhood countries, there were constant allegations on Iran that civilian areas are being bombed by Iran. Now, the president of Iran has clarified that the attacks on the neighborhood countries will stop, which means that attacks on countries like Qatar, Doha, Bahrain, Saudi or UAE, or for that matter, others, Kuwait for that matter, will stop, is what he is hinting. Yesterday, remember, the president said there are countries who are trying to mediate or have offered to mediate between the countries in West Asia. So in a way, Iran now wants to de-escalate, because remember, be it Oman or be it Qatar, they have been the negotiators for long on behalf of Iran. Whenever there have been issues in West Asia, Qatar has emerged as the middle ground where the two parties have come and met. So by halting attacks on the neighborhood countries, now Iran is signaling that they want to de-escalate the situation, but the fate of US-Israel versus Iran war continues. The fate is not yet clear.
Okay.
It is very clear that Iran is not going to negotiate with US. This is something that has come in from various quarters of leadership in Iran. On the other hand, US says that unless and until Iran surrenders unconditionally, the war will not end. Israel doesn't have any statement to make on de-escalation. Off-ramp is something that we haven't seen coming in from Israel, at least. In a way, yes, things are de-escalating, at least for the neighborhood countries in West Asia of Iran, and that is something that is the first positive signal that has come in last 7 to 8 days.
All right, thanks for that, Rishabh. Let's take this across to our guests as well. Major General Rajan Kochhar is with us in the studio. Dr. Anand Ranganathan also joins us. RSN Singh as well, Sushil Pandit and Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow, IPCS. Mr. Mitra, coming to you first and foremost, how seriously can we take these Iranian claims now of wanting to de-escalate? We're also getting reports that there's an apology that's gone through from Mr. Pezeshkian of Iran, the president, to Iran's neighbors about the conflict's theater being expanded now to different parts of the Middle East. Will Iran now exercise restraint? And is this a sign that perhaps also could be running out of munitions? How are we to see this?
First, I'm literally 3 minutes back, I've received a notification on Telegram of new attacks on Bahrain. The way I did not read Pezeshkian's tweet either as an apology to the Middle Eastern kings and sultans and heads of state, nor did I see it as a attempted de-escalation. The problem is the IRGC is on autopilot mode. And what is happening is their loyalty, if you read their oath of loyalty, it is to the supreme leader of Iran as representing the will of the Iranian people. So their loyalty is to the supreme leader. When there is no supreme leader to tell them or command them, what happens to them? They basically go on autopilot. Pezeshkian has no authority to control them. The triumvirate that is heading up the government right now has no authority to control them. It is only when the assembly of 88 experts meets and elects a new supreme leader that they may listen to him. again, a big question mark right now. The problem is if that assembly of experts meets, they will probably get bombed by the Americans and the Israelis. So right now, I neither see de-escalation happening for at least for the next week or so, nor do I see any backing down by the IRGC, nor do I see any de-escalation attempting to happen, nor do I see any, stoppage of attacks on the Gulf.
Dr. Ranganathan, going by the commentary we've heard from White House, Trump, his aides, the utter lunacy that is on display, where do you think this is headed?
Yes, first of all, on something that is not totally unrelated, I hope the Congress and its spokespersons, both suspended and unsuspended, have apologized to you on the matter of the Iranian warships. You were, as usual, absolutely right. And the Congress owes its apologies not only to you, but to the Indian Navy as well as to the government of India. We responded immediately to the help that was asked of us. And the Lavan, one of the warships right now, is docked in Kochi, and all its 183 members of the crew are absolutely safe and well. So I hope Congress has the dignity to apologize to you. On this matter, I echo with Abhijit, but I would like to add something as well. This war is not for Iran to win or lose or to extend. It is purely on Trump to win or lose it. He is going to decide how long can he sustain involvement in this war. Already we are seeing vigorous opposition in America to the extension of this war. It's already lasted a week. And once the body bags, unfortunate though, of course it is, start landing on the shores of America, it's going to be increasingly difficult for Trump to justify it. But can I also just say, even if Iran apologizes for or says it's not going to bomb the states that are directly not in confrontation with it, irrespective of the American bases or in some cases not, let me remind you that the Hormuz blockade by Iran is making these very states suffer even more debilitating losses than random attacks by drones and missiles. For example, Qatar and UAE are suffering unbelievable losses every day, every hour that Hormuz is blockaded. Their whole economy is suffering because of this. So unless Iran says, well, I apologize for perpetrating drone attacks and I'm going to allow Qatar and UAE to function normally through the Straits of Hormuz, I think this is just hogwash.
Sushil Pandit, the domestic commentary that Dr. Ranganathan was referring to, he wants the Congress to apologize. I don't see the apology coming. All that they will do is, harden their stance, double down, defiance, etc. But even on the issue of Russian oil, which is as clear as daylight, the Congress party, the larger ecosystem, they are misleading people. And they are doing this only so that Modi can look bad, weak.
Who is this for?
This for you, sir.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. Yes, of course. And being an opposition party, I think they feel that whether it is war, whether it is diplomacy, whether it is domestic politics, they must reasonably or unreasonably train their guns at the government and the leader, irrespective of whatever has been their past record or however it impacts our national interest. We've been buying Russian oil. We are still buying Russian oil. Russia is still contributing among the top 3 exporters to India, has always been in the last 1 year. But that doesn't matter for Congress because it has to, for any reason, target this government. On the matter of this war itself, it's so irresponsible for the kind of opposition leader we have. Irrespective of national interest, trying to rail guns, trying to jeopardize a relationship is the least of their concern. So you can't expect any better from them. much less the apologies for their shenanigans on Iranian ship. Be that as it may, I think there is one issue referred to Hormuz by Dr. Anand Ranganathan. I feel Hormuz is more blocked not by Iran as much as by the insurance companies. The moment you withdraw cover on oil tankers, they refuse to ply. And that is more effective blockade on a shipping lane than a country already debilitated may just issue a statement and effectively block that place. Right now, US is controlling Hormuz more than Iran is. And I have reports that Chinese ships are still plying through that. Not all shipping is shut.
Okay.
And so there is this issue. Chinese ships probably are impervious to insurance issues. Some of them are taking the risk and going through. But the issue of our Congress, I think we shouldn't waste too much of our airtime on what they say and what they don't, because it's hardly tethered in reason. It is more a knee-jerk, whimsical reaction to whatever happens.
Okay. Major General Kochar is here with me in the studio. Sir, politics apart, as a veteran, when you hear irresponsible, reckless commentary, how does it feel? I'm not sure, you want to delve into BJP, Congress, but, I'm asking you, as a veteran.
I think that's a very pertinent question, because I'm not part of any of those parties. But as a veteran, I can tell you that the statements which are emanating from the opposition parties reflect a lack of understanding of protocols of maritime affairs, because they talk about the Indian Ocean and why we did not interfere and things like that, because there is a lack of understanding, I think. The second part is that they have a tendency to raise an issue just to question the government rather than the merits of the case. Because here I, as a veteran, I feel if you are responsible opposition and if the government is doing something controversial, definitely you must raise that issue. But if it is a matter of foreign policy and certain inputs, let me tell you, on which the decisions of the government are made are not available in the social media. You and me are not aware of those intelligence and the kind of inputs which a government gets to make a decision. And therefore, when we question a decision, we are not aware of the entire ground realities on which the decision was made. So I think that's a larger issue. I feel the opposition need to carry out an introspection on their own methodology of their own research kind of a process before they come out with such a kind of decision. And my last point is that whenever an opposition starts questioning the government on such issues, the world is also looking at us. I think the world opinion also on India's governance and India's understanding of larger issues also plays an important role, and I think the opposition needs to realize.
So which is why I think the opposition is playing to the gallery. उनको पता है सब देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं. There was an article in a newspaper और उसमें problem भी हो गया था. So what you are saying, in other words, Dr. Ranganathan uses a phrase. वो बोलते हैं कुछ बोलने से पहले पढ़ तो लिया करो, but वो informed commentary नहीं है वो. Colonel RSN, as we speak, Dubai airport has been shut down again. Operations have been shut.
Yes, this input that you just now gave about the Iranian president having made an offer to, the neighboring countries that, or not offer assurance that they will not be targeted but you now tell me that Dubai airspace has again been closed. Now, I totally agree with Abhijit that in the scheme of things in Iran, the Iranian president the IRGC is not beholden to the president. And that is why I talk of two Irans. An Iran that constitutes of the Supreme Council and the IRGC, and an Iran for the rest of the people. Now, what you saw in in the women football team, the women footballers lined up, all 11 of them, not singing the national anthem. They belong to the other Iran. It was very clear. So this is the most worrisome part, as to how do you de-escalate in this when you don't know, when there is so much of confusion as to who is calling the shots in Iran at the moment. So this confusion will, add to the longevity of this ongoing, war. And one thing I must tell you that right from the beginning, it was a regional conflict, isn't it? I mean, Iran also had its proxies in different countries. Hamas was one, Hezbollah was there, the Houthis were in Yemen. And then the factor of Red Sea. So to begin with, it was a regional conflict. And I mean, people should not forget that this war is between Israel and Iran. And Israel is free to pick up military alliances. For whatever reasons, I don't want to go into that. We know that there's a very strong strategic and military alliance.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Colonel RSN, but look what we have. We have a breaking input that says Iran is now apologetic for its actions. It is saying sorry to neighbors. So for the strides that it has carried out, I don't know how this should be read. Abhijit, what do you make of this? Sorry to neighbors?
Well, Pezeshkian's tweet yesterday also said the same thing. But what is he saying? See, we have to go into the Farsi part of it. He's saying, we're sorry, it is not a war we started. That is all he's saying. He's not saying sorry to them per se. This is like, me say slapping Anand Ranganathan and saying, sorry, bhai, I need to slap you even more. But I'm doing it for your own good because तुम्हारे में भूत अंदर फंसा हुआ है, and unless I do this exorcism, तुम्हारे से भूत नहीं निकलेगा. That's exactly what he's doing. The exorcism is the American bases out there. Demonic possession. So I'm not taking this, apology so-called very seriously.
Okay, everybody is smiling now. General Kochar is smiling. Dr. Ranganathan wants to come in. Yes, sir.
नहीं, ईरान से डर नहीं लगता साहब, अभिजीत के थप्पड़ से डर लगता है. No, but I'd like to say a couple of things out here. It is not Iran's war, I repeat, to win or lose. What are the things that are going in favor of America and Israel? Number one, absolutely awesome and brutal firepower. It is not going to be more than, I would say, 5 or 6 days, maybe at best couple of weeks, where they have complete and utter domination of Iranian skies. But then, the other thing that is going for, America and Israel is, as the good colonel said, there are two Irans. 80 to 85% of Iranian people have been against this brutal, tyrannical regime. What are the things that are going against Americans? One word, America. As I said, I go back to the 1990 Gulf War. It was within a matter of a month that America and its allies had total domination over Iraqi skies. In fact, they had troops on the grounds as well, Pranesh, if you remember. But then what happened? There was truce, Iraq surrendered, and for the next 15 years, the same regime continued even more brutally. So is that going to be the case again out here? That is left on Trump entirely. That is not in the hands of Iran at all.
What happens next then? Sushil Pandit, do you see this as, some sign of reconciliation? If not surrender, etc.?
I think, Pranesh, this is more of a ruse. Pezeshkian has been a face of some moderation in this regime forever. Remember, a few months back when the demonstrations broke out against spiraling prices, inflation, plummeting real, at that time he actually went public and said, we must take the blame for mismanaging the economy. People have a right to protest for their grievances. He looked and sounded very reasonable, though it was more of a pretense and mollycoddle the street. But the point is, he is propped up by the same regime. And it could well be a ruse. It could well be to soften the emerging alliance in the region against Iran, who are willing to cooperate and actually are cooperating with US in order to pummel this regime. So they must have realized that by attacking their neighbors, they have, it has been a counterproductive step, and they have united the entire region or most of the region against themselves. So it could be probably a bit of a trial balloon to see how the region reacts, but I won't take it seriously. And any step to hold back the operation right now before it meets its objectives of changing Iran's regime will be a wasted effort of the last so many days. It must now meet the fruition, go to the conclusion, and not leave at tinkering, which currently is going on.
Okay, and you called it a ruse. Look what the AP is reporting. It says Iran's president apologizes for firing on regional countries, even as Tehran continues its attacks on them. There you go. General Saab?
You see, what I actually see that Iran wants a reconciliation as of now because this entire war is a war of logistics. And I think we need to understand that because this is an attrition war. We don't have troops on ground, so who will last longer will decide the victor here. And second important aspect, what I'm seeing is that there is some talk of a ground offensive also, getting along. And if you have to launch a ground offensive, then you need the support of the neighboring countries like Saudi Arabia and things like that. Because if you remember, when the Iraq war happened, the logistic base of the Americans was Saudi Arabia. So I think it's to that larger context that Iran does not want. Though I don't think the Americans are very fond of actually going into Iran, but certain kinds of statements are emanating from America. Because in case they are not able to achieve what they want to achieve by attrition war, I think the last option for them will be to go inside once they know Iran is very weak to counter their ground forces. So if you do a terrain analysis in Iran, especially the western part and the northwestern part is a no-go there. So the best part is the southern part from where the Persian Gulf side is there, and possibility of a limited offensive can take place from that side. So I think Iran is aware of these ground realities. So I perceive that, okay, this is my analysis, I can be wrong also. I actually perceive this is a bit of softening up taking place in Iran, because Iran is short on the reserves of its own missiles, because it has a limited capability to fight the Americans. It doesn't have the same kind of capability which Israelis and Americans have. And if you just heard in the morning, Israel has been actually given a large consignment of 1,000 pounder ammunition bombs from the US. What does it signify? It actually signifies that the US wants to prolong this war, and it wants to weaken Iran to a situation where a ground offensive can be planned. So please don't rule out a ground offensive. At a later stage, it may be a limited operation, or it may be a special forces operation.
War, but don't rule out a ground offensive. Abhijit, I'm coming to you. Dr. Ranganathan has a point to make.
No, I completely agree with the general, except to say that I think the boots on the grounds have to be aided by, for example, the Kurds. I think the more there needs to be some Iranian territory in the control of Israel and Iran as soon as possible for them to even think about an offensive from the ground.
Okay, a Malta flat vessel, Abhijit, has been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Like I said, Pezeshkian has no authority to apologize or order the IRGC to do anything. So obviously, they're not going to listen to him. Let's look, because we are talking about logistics, let's look at the logistics. There was Marco Rubio's own statement a few days back, where he said, you know, we are able to build about 6 or 7 interceptors a month. They are able to build hundreds of missiles every month. They've also, normally the cost of a ballistic missile versus a drone since World War II, because, you know, a drone is essentially the V1 rocket and a ballistic missile is essentially the German V2 rocket, is about 20:1, right? With the scale of production the Iranians have, they've reduced the cost of ballistic missiles so dramatically. We now estimate the cost is around 5 or 6:1. Now, in that, for every $10,000 drone, and say 100, even assuming highest level, $200,000 ballistic missile, you're firing $4 million interceptors at them. You know, there is several layers of logistics out here. I will just go back and quote my great hero, my greatest hero from World War II, Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin, which is that quantity has a quality all of its own.
Dr. Ranganathan?
Abhijit's next vacation should be in a gulag.
No, I don't know that, but I think the longer Abhijit stays, I have to be careful. Ye mera number na aa jaye.
Paresh, you will have to give me a chance.
Of course, sir. Colonel Larson, please.
Paresh, allow me to come in.
Yes, sir. All yours, boliye.
No, what I am saying that, look, this, what I'm saying is that, look, ये लड़ाई, ये जंग किस बात की? ये ईरान के आइडियोलॉजी का भूत है, ठीक है ना? वो जुनून, और इसका कोई कारण नहीं है, और जब तक ये जुनून खत्म नहीं होगा, ठीक है, until this hysteria lasts, you will never see, you know, the things de-escalating. And it can only de-escalate it once IRGC is specifically targeted. Now, how do you target it? I don't know. Ground offensive, how much will it help? But yes, special operations. The second is that don't rule out that, you know, the Kurds are, you know, given all the, war fighting, war with all to, you know, to carry out an offensive. That is another thing that can happen. But एक और बात है, देखिए कि people who are blaming India, you know, the opposition that you talked about. Sir, if we would have been so subservient to American interests, would we have allowed these Iranian ships to dock in our ports? Americans can easily tell, you know, India that you cannot give shelter to enemy ships. But yet we have gone ahead. So this is new India. I don't know. And that ship, you know, Dena, that which we are talking about, I mean, what, I don't know what it was doing for, where it had disappeared for 12 days. What activities it was carrying out. So the details have not come to you as yet. So the general was absolutely right that on these issues, you should not open your mouth prematurely. Otherwise, you know, you will have to eat crow. But unfortunately, our people are too adept at eating crows. They're unabashed about it.
Okay, Sushil Pandit. Now, last evening I was discussing the comments by the US Deputy Secretary of State, is it Christopher Landau? Things that he said. Came to India and said that we are not going to be making the same mistake we made with China.
Well, there is a lurking fear in US that, you know, they could be creating another China out of India. I think some of these are exaggerated fears. China and India are completely two contrasting entities, chalk and cheese comparison. So this doesn't, it's more of an India phobia there. But going on to what Colonel Arasan Singh said about the issues of speaking out of turn, imagine this is the party trying to teach foreign policy and diplomacy to the current government. It messed up relationship with entire neighborhood. The start of deterioration with Nepal started with Congress. The mess in our east with Bangladesh started with Congress. How they allowed military dictatorships to flourish when in 1971 they could dictate terms and say that 96% of land border with Bangladesh is Indian, you don't need a military, we'll protect you. Instead of that, they just created another monster and sowed the seed for that. The mess with Sri Lanka is the creation of Congress again. The mess with Maldives. And now they are trying to teach this government how to conduct foreign policy, how to manage the neighborhood, and how to deal with situations like war is incredible. Somebody needs to remind them of what they have done in the past and where they stand vis-a-vis these issues, these challenges that we face today.
Dr. Ranganathan, you must have seen a clip, from the Oval Office, Trump surrounded by the pastors. Now, many people are framing this as a religious war unleashed by Donald Trump. The man who talks of peace is now doing this.
No, look, there hasn't been a decade in the last 80 years where America has not gone to war, irrespective of who the president is. But, I'm just seeing these pictures being tweeted out. If you can see this is the Congress leadership going to express. Now, the issue out here is very simple. I was against India expressing condolences. India did go halfway in fulfilling my wish that it did not immediately express condolences from the highest authorities in India, President and Prime Minister. But the fact, and here I would like to get the good colonel in, because what is the message we are sending when lakhs of people are pouring onto the streets, expressing, mourning, expressing condolences, mourning, eulogizing a person who was considered one of the most brutal, tyrannical rulers of Iran for decades and who's hated by Iranians themselves. And the fact is, he was not a friend of India. He never helped India. He was the one who called India an oppressor state. He was the one who wrongfully was branding us as massacring Muslims. Are we a soft state? That is what I would like to ask, Colonel.
Colonel Arasan?
Look, at the core of the ideology, the Islamic regime's ideology is anti-Zionism and Pan-Islam. Now, people who are say that are you siding with Iran, or Iran has been very good to us, etc. I don't want to get into that. Does Pan-Islam bother you? What you saw, these protests in India, it was nothing, but it was a glimpse of, not even a glimpse. It was Pan-Islam. It was a manifestation of Pan-Islam. So, are you comfortable with this? If the Indians are comfortable, I am not comfortable, right? And when this Pan-Islam is married to nuclear weapons, are you comfortable with it? I am not comfortable with it. So what visuals that you saw, on television channels, about, I think protests in more than 90 places in India. This Rudali gang, as I call them, was nothing but it was just a demonstration of Pan-Islamic thought.
Abhijit?
I take exception to my friend Anand's heinous comments about President Trump. As the Roman historian Vegetius said, si vis pacem para bellum, let he who wants peace prepare for war. And I reiterate, Trump is a president of peace. We may not see peace as, as an immediate goal, but it is the long-term goal number one. Number two, we need to remember the Shias are very much like the Hindu Guru Shishya Parampara. Every Shia has the right to choose his Guru, Ayatollah as they call it, wherever they choose to have it. Now, if some Hindu Guru gets killed somewhere and Hindus in America protest with his image, as long as it is peaceful, why should we get upset with it? I am totally fine with peaceful protests. I am totally fine with Indian Shias choosing a foreign guru, just as I am totally fine with Indian Americans choosing Indian gurus, or American Americans choosing Indian gurus as well.
Okay, quick thoughts, Mr. Pandit, you go first.
Thank you, Pranesh. I take exception to what my friend Abhijit just said. Indian street erupting for the foreign leaders and foreign countries, especially in the case of war, and especially when their record against India is voluminous in hostility, is something that we cannot be comfortable with. And we don't blame anybody else but ourselves. We have raised these generations of extraterritorial loyalists through a string of madrasas in the name of religious freedom, in the name of propagating their own religion. This unregulated madrasa syllabuses create generation after generation of such people whose loyalty lie across our borders. This happens not just with Shias choosing a guru and be their venerable guru and be their shishyas here. This happened 100 years ago when Ottoman Empire was dismantled. Mughals pounced upon their fellow Hindus and massacred them in retaliation. What was the fault of these Hindus? When Bhutto was hanged by Ziaul Haq, in Kashmir, Jamaat-e-Islami, which was supposed to be supporting Ziaul Haq, was targeted by National Conference Muslims. They chased them, burnt their libraries. Similarly, when things happen elsewhere, look at this. What happened in New Zealand? In New Zealand, when a mosque was targeted, poor Christians were targeted on an Easter day in Sri Lanka. 250 of them killed through serial bomb blasts. There are innumerable instances where Pan-Islamist Ummah concept comes into play, and irrespective of where you are, what is the issue, innocents pay the price for some faraway tragedy somewhere.
But that happens only here, because if you see, what's happening in the Middle East, all these so-called Islamic countries are not backing Iran. They are with America. Dr. Ranganathan.
No, very quickly. Look, I completely agree with Sushilji, except to, just to respond to my good friend and elder brother Abhijit. You see, it's not a question of Indians taking umbrage to, somebody in India having a guru who is not Indian. It is what kind of guru? Tomorrow, if somebody chooses tens of thousands of Muslims choose Osama bin Laden as their guru, would we find it acceptable that they are mourning the death of Osama bin Laden? Remember that these thousands of these very people were mourning the death of the terrorist Nasrallah, who was the head of Hezbollah. Now, would you be all right if they were to say that Nasrallah was my guru, so I should be allowed to mourn and eulogize him? That's where I disagree, humbly.
General Saab.
You see, I'd just like to make your comment here. See, we need to understand that we have around 18 to 20 crores Muslims in our country. They are Indians first and Muslims later, and let us not question their integrity and loyalty to the nation. These are religious kind of affiliations.
Why, sir, what is happening in Kashmir? Please don't give these discourses. Sir, please.
Let him have his say.
No, RSN.
You can defer to
RSN,
him, let him at least speak. One person at a time, please.
No, RSN, so you may have your views,
please,
I have
we
mine.
don't want your discourse.
No. You may not agree with my views, it's fine. We are a democratic country, everybody has got his own views to give. But I've been in the Indian Army. I've had you Muslims and you soldiers under my command. I never doubted them.
Pakistan Army
So please.
you were in the
Let him make his point, Colonel RSN, please. Let
RSN,
1 minute, calm down.
Have the decency to listen. You'll get a chance to speak. You were not interrupted when you were speaking. So I'm just trying to give you a perspective here, because we have a secular country. As far as India is concerned, some people may like to question that also, secular nature of the country. But we need to understand that we have a fourth largest population of you Muslims in the world here, and they are Indians. Let us not question their integrity and loyalty here. The religious kind of affiliations will always be there. Every religion has got its own affiliations to have. And the spirit
But
of...
General Saab, I just want to say, I get the larger point. No one is here on the panel, giving certificates. The only thing that Dr. Ranganathan was trying to, the point that he was trying to make, and what Sushil Panditji was trying to say, that look, as law-abiding citizens, all of us, forget the religion, the constitution comes first, and there is constitutional legality, there is also constitutional morality. So you can't have a situation where terrorists who have been executed on orders of Supreme Court, they are hailed, har ghar se afzal niklega, etc., is a reality. So we must just take that in our stride when we, make these points, just that limited point. We'll have to take a short break. Okay. I'm sorry, gentlemen, we'll have to take a short break. Abhijit, iske baat karte hain. Let's take a short break. Lots more lined up on the other side. Amita Vadva joins you.